So hi everyone, this is part 2 of my preparations for the upcoming Rogue Festival in just a few weeks' time. So what am I doing? I'm doing my movie, Cassini, that I put together with Claudia Lasso and some other people. And we're going to present the movie and we're going to play the music live in a small venue at the Rogue Festival. So this is kind of like some of these performances that have become very popular. You can go see like Star Wars, and there'll be a live orchestra there playing the music track. You can also see a more fun thing where they show a bunch of old Warner Brothers Looney Tune cartoons, and we'll play the largely classical music soundtrack that went with those wonderful old cartoons, and there'll be a live orchestra to do that. So I'm doing much the same thing. This is just, of course, on a much smaller scale. So the Rogue Festival being a fringe festival, the venues are very smallish. So I will be in the back of a bookstore. There's a little kind of narrow performance space there. It has a stage at one end. There's a screen and a projector to run the film. But then I'm kind of on my own for absolutely everything else. Now, the other thing is that for this performance, there's just simply not enough room for me to have every element of the music represented absolutely live. The original score was for organ, piano, choir, and a soprano soloist. So the way we're going to do it this time is the organ part and the soprano soloist. Those will be live. The piano part and the choir part will be represented with a backing track, and this will also help us keep in time with the music, with the film. The other thing that is present on this setup is, of course, there's a synchronized click track. And this is something that is used in those bigger performances. At the very least, the conductor has a click track going on. And I think most of you probably realize that a conductor of an orchestra does a lot more than just keep time. They keep the various sections of the orchestra balanced with gestures. They indicate various expressive things like dynamic changes and so forth. And so the click track is there to keep everybody in sync with the movie, and the conductor there is to handle the orchestra and make sure that they are playing the music in a really meaningful way. So setting up something to do the backing track and the video in such a way that the live musicians can play to it, remain in sync to everything, that has been a little bit of a challenge to put together, especially on a tight budget. So naturally, there's lots of great stuff out there that you can get for doing this exact thing. And in my research, I have found that pretty much everybody loves to use Ableton Live. They get a high-powered laptop, they put Ableton Live on there, their backing tracks, any click tracks they need, video, all of that stuff is put in there, along with any virtual instruments you might be using and everything else. And that is what they use. More recently, there is a device that came out of Italy from a company called M Live, and they make a number of devices. One that's kind of their entry level and is quite powerful is called the B-Beat, and it's a standalone machine that will play video and up to 8 tracks of audio all synchronized together, and you plug it in your computer and you put your file together and off you go. Some people are picking up on that and using it, but so far what I am seeing are not like, big first run bands and stuff. They're still using Ableton Live. This unit is very popular with, touring bands that are doing tribute acts and things like that. I have not seen any bad reviews about it, but it is $850. and it is a standalone purpose machine that won't really do anything else. And so I really had to start thinking about, if I'm going to invest in some kind of backing track and video playback system, I really want it to integrate with the rest of what I'm doing and to really be a good part of my overall setup. The other thing is, being on a budget, I needed this to be something I could build out a step at a time and not have to make just this huge investment of $800,000, $1,500 all at once. And I had to think about other things that I might want to do. So when we look at my overall rig, and I've shown this in other videos, my main sound source, because my music is organ centric, is a program called Hart. It's a very fat pipe organ emulator that uses sample playback as its sound production. It's kind of the gold standard for doing a virtual organ. The difficulty is, because it's such a fat program, it's really not built to drop into a VST type system, so like Gig Performer, or putting your virtual instruments into a DAW recording software program, or even Ableton Live. It will only run by itself. So I have to have a separate computer that just does that. And on my current stage rig, as we will see in upcoming videos, yeah, there's a little laptop there. All it does is run Hart. Now, it also happens to be my work computer. It runs an oscilloscope and other software that I need when I'm out doing my work in the organ industry, doing repairs and diagnostics and things. But for on stage, it just runs Hart. That's it. So anything else I want to do is going to involve equipment that has to be independent of that computer. So I really had the choice of use the B-Beats, the standalone unit, or do something with a second computer, a la an Ableton Live setup. I also have been wanting to think about the fact that I would like to bring expand my sound palette primarily into analog synthesis. I also use piano a lot in my music, and like I said, the computer that's currently on stage can only run Hart because Hart has to run standalone. So as I kind of tossed all of this around in my mind, I really finally started leaning toward the second computer option, even though I really don't like the idea of a second computer on stage. It just seems that that's ultimately going to be the more practical thing. And if this setup ends up working really well during the festival, that's going to absolutely settle that issue for me. So, I have a DAW program I've been using for years. This is Studio One from Personas. It does not support video, at least natively as built. Ableton will only support video in their higher level iterations. The basic Ableton doesn't support video. But I found along the way a thing called VidPlay VST, and it's a video player that drops into a DAW program, Digital Audio Workstation, as if it were one of the virtual instruments. So on my Studio One setup, I use this primarily for multi-track recording, and so I can use that feature to run the backing tracks and the click track. So here's some of the backing track stuff, and if I clear this out, you can see I also have the click track, and then this is the soprano solo for reference. This is the piano and the choir. You can also drop in virtual instruments. Those come in on this list. I've got a DX7 emulator, a couple of orchestral things, a couple of different pianos, and so on and so forth. And so there's your backing tracks, additional instruments if I want to use them. So video came down to being the thing that I would need. This program here, VidPlay VST, was only $25, and I started researching it and looking around on YouTube and all of that, and everybody had great things to say about it. But it's from this company overseas I'd never heard of, and it's only $25. I was definitely a little skeptical, but it seems to work just fine. It's dropped in here on track 1 as an instrument track, and then I loaded the video that we made and just muted the audio track on that video, and then it was a matter of synchronizing the piano, choir, backing click track, and so forth, so that all of this would work as needed. And then you simply press play, it starts. I can then tell it to go full screen, and as long as I have this screen duplicated in the projector, we're off and running. Now, at some point, right about here, the click track comes into play. The organ, I'm playing some stuff on the organ. The piano will come in a little later. I don't have the audio on right now, but I also then had to upgrade my audio interface. I only had a stereo audio interface, but I needed to have a stereo output for the backing track, the musical part, and then I needed a separate output for the click track so that those can be routed differently. Obviously, we want the backing track music to go both to the monitor and to the house audio system so that we can hear that, but we don't want the click track. We want only my soprano soloist and me hearing that. So I settled on this Arturia mini fuse. It seems to be a very nice audio interface and is working beautifully. Currently, it's just sitting here on my subwoofer box, and it's going to be incorporated into the deck, and we will see how that all works out in a future video. So the other thing we have to do is I have to accommodate the soprano soloist, and so let's take a look at a special setup I came up with for that. So in this type of performance, staying in sync to the video is kind of a key thing. And we have to think about the particular needs that a singer would have in doing a performance such as this. Now, the two singers, Anne and Bernadette, that are going to be doing these performances with me are trained opera singers. They really don't need a lot of help, especially in a small room like the venue that we'll be performing in for the Rogue Festival. I do, however, have to be able to blend their voice into the mix of what's being done. And my music relies heavily on a lot of echo effects and reverb effects that how do we get that onto a live voice? Well, I had to come up with some way of doing that where I would be able to add reverb and echo effects as needed to the singer's voice without amplifying their voice, because their natural voice is just going to fill the room just fine. I also had to be able to have them hear the click track and the backing tracks appropriately, and then that creates another problem. So if, singers, most classical music singers are not used to working with a set of headphones or earpieces, and when you do have those on, you kind of can't hear your voice the way you're used to hearing it. So I found this nifty little box here. This one's made by Rolls. It's called a personal monitor amp. And the way it works is we have our monitor feed, the click track and all of the other audio tracks come in, and plug your headphones or earpieces in here, and they can control how loud that is. The microphone then passes through this unit and onto the sound system, and along the way the singer can have some of their unaffected voice in their ears, so it feels a little more natural. That way they can keep in time with the click track and then hear their own voice. The microphone ultimately goes into the computer that's running the backing tracks, and I have routed it so that it gets fully saturated with the effects, and so the only part of the singer's voice that's going to be coming out of the speakers is the effect part, not just their own voice. You're going to hear their natural voice, and then you're going to hear the effects kind of blended in the air, as that were. So this little device is going to prove to be really handy for my singers. I also got them a pair of in-ear monitors, and so we should be up and running. So the next thing is they're going to come over for some rehearsals, and we're going to try this whole setup out, and we'll see how it works. And of course I'll shoot some video for that. The next thing we also have to look at is the sound system I've put together for this, again in keeping with that, try to make this as simple and easy to set up as I possibly can, and we'll see what I did with a 2.1 homemade satellite speaker system. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you had a good time, and remember, have some fun and enjoy your life.